Yes!
Welcome back to
Watch you
Dangerous
pull it
Tackle
all right,
Tips.
eh?
On today's video, I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm out chasing flatfish, so flathead, flounder, or anything I can really find on the flats here. And I'm going to change the lure every time I catch a fish. And I'm going to try and use a different style of lure for every fish that I catch. So the first lure I'm using is a Vex jigwig shrimp pan sleeve. That was a bloody mouthful. Either way, it's basically a bucktail presentation, except that you can fit them over any jig head you want. So in this instance, I was using I think it was a 1/8 jig head, and then I'm casting it out to this drop off here and just slowly working it back. These are really popular in Western Australia, particularly in the Swan River, because buckaboos or jigwigs don't really get smashed by the blowfish. So in the Swan River, there's plague proportions of blowfish, and they can eat through your soft plastics or damage any plastic lures. So here I'm using it sort of like you would a flick bait. So you can cast it out really far because you don't get any real wind resistance on the fly presentation. And then I'm basically doing a slow retrieve, double flick up, pause, slow retrieve. So double flick up, wind in 3 or 4 times. No. Just slowly working it past. Here we go. So I was just working it past a little bit of a weedy patch there, and I got a nice hit. So just like a soft plastic, I'm holding the rod tip up nice and high, just so that line doesn't wrap around its gill rakers. If you're using a longer stick bait, you don't need to worry about that as much, but if you're using a smaller soft plastic or a buckaboo, or in this case a jigwig, you want ideally to have the jig head connected up to the top lip, and you're holding the line away from the gill rakers so it doesn't bust you up. Perfect. Nice pin there. So next up, we've got hard body lures. So I'm using a Molossi Minion 65 floating diver, and I'd say this is really what got me into flats fishing. You know, I'm out on the flats, knee-deep water, ripping across these hard bodies along the bottom. And the good thing about using hard body lures, I've got, I guess, lures that I've used for years where, you know, you just replace the hooks, and particularly if you're on the flats, you don't tend to really lose that many unless you're casting around heavy structure. So I sort of get attached to a lot of my hard body lures, and it's always nice when you dust off one that you haven't used for a long time and you remember the fish you caught with it years ago, and you can keep on using it. So I'll stop being sentimental and show you my retrieve. So as it's a floating lure and I'm casting out a little bit deeper, I get a little bit of a speed on it at the beginning, double flick, but in this side I'm doing it sideways. So sideways flicks, so you're ripping it across to try and attract the fish, and then I'll slow the retrieve down. And we're on. Checking if I still got the camera filming. He was coming in nice and easy. I don't think he realised he was hooked until he saw me. There we go. Navigating around a few of these rocks here. Here's a nice fat one. Here comes disaster.
Oh! Oh, that's so bad. That's
With
bad.
that flick, his gill raker went into my thumb about 1 centimetre and split it right down the middle. There was claret absolutely everywhere. I can't really show it on the video because you often get strikes or demonetized when you show a bit of claret. Either way, let's do a bit of patchwork. And even with the patchwork, it just wouldn't stop bleeding. I think there was way too much caffeine running through my body. Either way, I came back out a week later and kept on going with the mission. You've probably seen this lure in a lot of my videos. It's the Vex Micro Meat. This is in 10 gram. I usually use the 5 gram for flathead, but here it was just what I had in my box, to be honest. But I thought I'd get longer casts and hit the drop off. So I cast it out as far as I can, and probably that's one of the main, I guess, best factors about this is just extreme casting distance, because it's almost like a painted sinker with assist hooks off the back. So you can punch this into the wind or get ridiculous distance from it. And with the little assist hooks, you don't really get snagged up too much, and you can sort of cut through weed as well, unless you get that dirty string weed. Here I am, nice hook up. So with the retrieve, it's just a medium to slow retrieve, pause, little hops, and just working it away. So it's sort of like a worm cruising along the bottom of the flats. Really, really effective. As you've seen, or if you want to see my last video using these to catch yellowfin whiting as well. I smashed a few flounder with them in the last couple of weeks as well.
Holding bloody tight this time.
Definitely holding it tighter. Bumped into John and had a good chat with him. He was out using a Daiwa bait junkie prawn. I think he nailed 3 or 4 of these.
There we are.
It's good to have a chat with him out in the flats.
And appreciate that. Hey,
Good.
I'll get a little D-hook.
So that worked well into the next lure.
Super.
So I didn't have one of the Daiwa prawns, which are a great lure as well, but I had a Rapala Crush City Imposter. This is probably one of my favourite plastics to use. I think it's either the Imposter or the Daiwa Bait Junkie 3.2 inch minnow in Bloodworm. I would say these two are probably in the top 2 or 3 favourite flatty lures. I think the Z-Man's Curly Tails 4 inch is also extremely underrated, and you often find that in a bargain bin, so have a look out for that too. So with the prawn presentation, I work it really, really slow. So let it sink down, hop up, and again I'm using a really long rod here, so I've got an 8'6" rod, so when I do a hop it's lifting it quite far off the bottom, so I've got to give it time to sink back down to the bottom. So I'm just slowly working it back towards myself. At the end I bring it in a little bit faster and something happens here. This fish comes in and sees it. I wait for the take. He takes it. And we're on.
Yes! Watch him forward all the way, you know.
When you see it right in front of your feet.
He's only little. Oh. Light drag.
Even though he's a little tacker, when you see something like that, it really brightens your day up. Gotta love the visual of flats fishing. One of the downsides to using soft plastics, again in the Swan River, is the blowfish. So when they're not in plague proportions, they're a great option. Also, I would avoid using S-Factor on these lures if a blowfish are around. Once you put a bit of S-Factor on it, they'll just get chomped straight away. Which is annoying because S-Factor works really well. In my opinion, anyway. So, the final style that I'm using is a micro jig. So here I've got a Palms miniature
Pain to like have
Dax 7 gram micro jig.
And that's alright, yeah.
I haven't eaten flounder. Are they good?
Yeah, flounder is probably one of my favourite fish to eat out of the Swan.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they can go a bit mushy if you like steam. If you don't, you're better off like just baking them uncovered, or like gutting them and scaling them, like scoring them, and then like cooking the whole thing in hot oil, and make it nice and crispy. But yeah, they're really good.
With the micro jig, I use it similar to basically when you're squid jigging. I'm going for squid. I'll cast it out as far as I can, let it sink almost to the bottom, and then I'll flick it up 2 or 3 times. Then I'll let it sink down, retrieve in a little bit, and then flick up. What I find is often they'll smash it on the drop, so I'll go to flick up again, and then there'll be a fish on, and it smashes it as it's fluttering down to the bottom.
You watch your lure coming in, there'll be like 6 or 7 of them all chasing your lure.
See the flash, eh?
And you see it all flashing, and here you'd see them all in ones, but eventually you'd... Oh, here we are.
Gotta love it.
There you go.
Nice hook up.
On the micro jig.
Went to lift up again, and I was hooked on.
He feels alright. Oh, might be... Oh, it's a flounder, as we're talking about it.
Big devil.
So which style reigns supreme? It's a really hard question. It'd be like asking me which of my kids is my favourite. I love using them all. They're great. They're great.
Ooh,
But if I
it's a good
had
one.
to pick one, I'd probably say on the flats. In the last couple of seasons, I've caught way more on the Vex micromeat than anything else. So when I'm talking flathead and flounder, the one that I like to use the most would probably be a hard-bodied lure. So the Molossi. There's something about seeing your hard-bodied lure get smashed by a flathead or a flounder. And my top sort of 4 out of 5
Beautiful.
biggest flathead I've caught in the Swan have all been on hard-bodied lures. With that being said, if I was fishing off a rock wall or a big drop-off, I'd probably use a jigwig or a soft plastic probably 8 or 9 times out of 10. Either way, thanks for watching. Feel free to hit me up in the comments and let me know which one's your favourite style, or if I've missed any ones that you regularly use.